as clinicians, we need to be so intentional with writing goals that really explain the function, the behavior, and the true independent outcomes that we're looking for with these students and clients.
At the end of the day, it comes down to like the goals that we're writing and the services that we're providing. Like we have to prove that what we're doing is absolutely necessary.
Welcome to All Things Sensory by Harkla,
your go-to podcast for practical insights on sensory processing and development from an occupational therapy perspective.
Let me tell you about the best goals for primitive reflex integration when it comes to occupational therapy. Child will integrate the ATNR.
Wrong.
Right. Okay, don't do that. Because insurance doesn't care about primitive reflexes.
They care about the functional independence behind the primitive reflex.
So today we're going to teach you how to write functional goals that will get approved by insurance, meaning you will get paid for doing your good work, and your child or your client will still integrate those primitive reflexes.
Yeah.
Okay, hi. Welcome to All Things Sensory by Harkla. We're so happy to have you here today. I'm Rachel, pediatric occupational therapy assistant, aka the crawling queen.
And I'm Amanda, a pediatric occupational therapist who is so excited to share about how to get our clients integrating their reflexes while also being covered by insurance at the same time.
Y'all, how exciting is it that we finally have an OT who can talk about goal writing?
This is incredible. I love it. It's a little nerve-wracking. Like
No
the
pressure.
whole world is on my shoulders right
It
now.
is, yes.
But
As long as we
this.
teach them, child will integrate ATNR, that's not how we write goals. We're doing our job.
My stomach is literally churning right now. The amount of times that I have come in on another job or another client or gotten a referral from somewhere and I see that and I'm like, how have you been working on this goal? Like, who is approving this? It's usually not approved. And then we just got to fix it on the back end. But let's go through some things of why we don't write goals like that.
All right, at the end of the day, no one wants a reflex to be integrated just for the sake of integration, just to say, woohoo! We did it. We integrated Joe's reflex. I did my job.
Yeah, absolutely not. And I think that that's like where the taboo conversation around this is like, what are we doing? But it's really, truly, genuinely about the function behind these reflexes. What kind of distress and disruption are these reflexes being unintegrated causing in the individual's life?
Exactly. So in OT terminology, we call that function. We call it functional. So for example, a Moro reflex, when that's retained or unintegrated, sometimes we see things like anxious behaviors, gravitational insecurity, sensory sensitivities. And so we're focusing our goals and our treatment and our interventions on improving those functional outcomes.
Yeah. And I see it a lot in the school where we have all of these things that seem kind of random going on in the background where, you know, the teacher or the team might come to you and they're like, hey, this child's handwriting is so sloppy. They don't want to participate in handwriting tasks, whatever it may be. And then I see them and I'm like, oh my goodness, they cannot hold a Superman pose. They can't crawl. They're so scared to get on a swing, you know, they can't play on the playground equipment. And I'm like, okay, so how are these things related? I'm not going to write a goal to integrate any of the reflexes that I tested for. I'm really not even going to write a goal for them to hold a Superman pose or to crawl across the room 20 feet. That's not a functional goal. That's not the problems that the child is having. The problem the child is having is handwriting and writing sentences that are legible.
Exactly. So when we can focus our interventions on Supermans and supine flexion and we can incorporate those, I think we have to get away from correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I feel like we have to get away from writing the goals to being the treatment plan.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. I think the treatment plan, right, when you're going into a session and you're thinking about your interventions that you're engaging with, that can be that could literally be puzzles. It can be a board game. It can be an obstacle course, but that really has nothing to do with the goals and the findings. Those are just tools to help motivate the child to be successful with all of the underlying skills that we need them to work on.
Exactly. So for a child who has a goal for handwriting, we're not just going to sit at the desk and work on handwriting over and over again. We're going to crawl. We're going to do Supermans. We're going to do, upper body activities on the wall against gravity. We're going to do all of these other things, but no one's telling us to do that in the goals.
Yep.
But we know using our expertise to work on all these underlying skills.
Yeah, and if it was just a repetition issue, if children's handwriting was really not good because they weren't practicing enough, you can just practice handwriting at home or with a tutor. You're coming to see a specialist because there are underlying deficits going on with your visual perceptual skills, your coordination, your core strength that are affecting your handwriting, and that's what we need to be addressing.
Exactly. So when it comes to primitive reflex goals, we are not saying things like child will integrate ATNR. Child will decrease STNR retention. Absolutely not. Child will complete 10 reflex exercises 5 times per week with a smile on their face. we gotta move past that. Okay.
Yeah. And I used to write goals, and I recall this from a clinic when I first started. I had some mentorship here and there, and then maybe not the best in other places, but I would write student or child will hold the Superman pose for whatever was appropriate for their age, for 30 seconds with good breath control. Yes, that's great that I'm keeping track of some data and measurements, but that was not a good goal because that did not explain to me, to a COTA that might have been working under me, to the insurance companies of okay, so he can't hold a Superman or a popcorn pose. Why is a student coming to you? Why is this child, what is it affecting? Is he having trouble with dressing? Is the child having trouble with emotional regulation, visual tracking? Why are you working on a popcorn pose?
I love that you called it popcorn pose.
I love
popcorn.
I love this Superman popcorn. I worked on it so much in the clinic, and I still love them, but
absolutely
not for a goal. So we need to be writing goals that are more, we will copy from, or student will copy from a near point or a far point model rather than we will integrate the TLR reflex.
Exactly. So that's really the goal here and what we want to remind you about if it's something that you're maybe just not as aware of, or I don't know, just if you want to start working on reflex integration in your sessions and you're like, well, how do I write goals that are going to be approved? On webinars and stuff, I get this question a lot of well, how are we talking about this? And so hopefully this is helpful, but I think we should do just a quick case study, maybe with the STNR. So what we often see with a retained STNR is things like poor posture, W sitting, and challenges copying from the board or sitting in a chair comfortably. So instead of a goal like child will decrease the STNR, what's a better option?
Maybe something like child will maintain upright seated position during a classroom activity for 6 minutes with no more than 2 physical or verbal prompts. Something along those lines where it's functional, it's measurable, it's actually talking about what's happening, what the student needs support with. And then on the back end, we can be implementing all of those amazing, fun intervention and treatment ideas that you've been saving on Instagram. We just don't need a goal for those things.
Here's the problem. Let's circle around and just look at this from here. The reason why insurance isn't approving reflex integration is because they don't know what we're working on to get to that goal.
Exactly.
Right? Isn't that crazy though to think about that?
Yeah.
We're not telling anyone that we're doing all these cool activities and all the modalities we're using.
Yeah.
And so it just continues to be this vicious cycle of no one really understanding how we're doing the things that we're doing.
Yeah. And a lot of times they'll ask us, for a progress report or progress summaries every 6 weeks or whenever, that specific insurance or whatever your state requirements are. But they want all these progress updates. But a lot of times, going back to other conversations that we've had this week, just about us being burnt out and having too much on our plates, but we're just doing kind of a quick progress update for them. We've been working on one little thing and this is what they're doing. But I think if we were to give them a more well-rounded picture of why we're doing the activities we're doing, why we have the goals we're writing, all of those things, if they could be a fly on the wall during our sessions, they would be like, whoa.
Oh, yeah.
Now we get it.
Yeah.
This is going to be a 1-second tangent, but like
I
who
love it.
who are the insurance people on the
Who are
other
denying all the claims?
who is on the other end of the phone, of the computer screen? Do you know me? Have you ever worked in a pediatric clinic?
They clearly don't have kids with disabilities at
Yeah.
home fighting for their rights to just get basic services. It's frustrating.
I know
It
this
is.
is felt across all areas of healthcare and insurance, but yeah, it's very frustrating. Like this stuff is so real. So that's why as clinicians, we need to be so intentional with writing goals that really explain the function, the behavior, and the true independent outcomes that we're looking for with these students and clients.
Exactly. And, to play devil's advocate, like insurance obviously has to pay for all of these services, right? And, we always have to come back to the question of like, is this medically necessary, right? Is what we're doing medically necessary, academically necessary in the schools? And at the end of the day, it's like, if we don't help these kids now, what's their future going to look like?
Yeah. What's the functional outcome that we're targeting?
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. I think that it's a really important conversation to have. And I just think that we have our work cut out for us going forward, just in general, of like this went from goal writing to advocating, but goal writing is basically our way of advocating for these kids and the services that we're providing. And I just feel like with, cuts happening with insurance, like at the end of the day, it comes down to like the goals that we're writing and the services that we're providing. Like we have to prove that what we're doing is absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
Which it is.
And I don't want clinicians and OTs to shy away from doing interventions like reflex integration because you're afraid that insurance won't cover it. We just have to learn how to better advocate and how to better write these goals and outcomes, but don't shy away from these interventions and these treatments that truly genuinely work just because you might not know how to write a goal for it.
And, I was just thinking we've been doing it for sensory processing for so long, right? Because sensory processing disorder isn't a true diagnosis in the DSM. So we just, we work around sensory processing. So we're going to have to just be creative and work around primitive reflexes.
No, for
if
sure.
that's something that you want to implement.
Yeah.
So, final takeaways, the reflex is not the goal. The goal is the function. So let's slow down and think about that.
So perfectly said.
Thank you. If you thought this was helpful, if you want to add to the conversation, please do. Sometimes we get a little spicy and we love your feedback.
Yeah, give us examples of goals that you write in your practice that you see insurance is consistently approving or liking.
I love that
I'm sure
idea.
some therapists out there would love some examples.
Yes. And with that, we'll plan on seeing you back here for another episode next week.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to All Things Sensory by Harkla.
You can find links and resources from today's conversation right in the description of this episode.
If you want to connect, ask a question, or share what resonated with you, come find us on Instagram at All Things Sensory Podcast. We'd love to hear from you.
As a podcast listener, you get 10% off your first order at Harkla. Just use the code SENSORY at checkout or head to harkla.co/sensory to get started.
We're so grateful you're here and honored to be a part of your journey.
Everything we share here is for educational purposes only and reflects our professional experience. It isn't medical advice. Please consult your healthcare provider for support specific to your child.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.